Good morning, everyone from Europe. Good afternoon in Asia. Thanks for using the time wisely and sharing some practical information with each other. We start a bit later. There might have been some confusion around the Zoom links because last week we were using exception for a change, a different one. We were waiting for a couple of people to rejoin this link. So apologies again to all of you who confused the two links. We'll make more efforts to be even clearer in the next email update. So welcome everyone to the pioneering session number 5. So also for today, we prepared with a 2-hour-long agenda. As usual, facilitators Paula and Claudio will recap the previous session and explain the objectives for this one. And in the first hour, we will have a guest speaker with us, Raphael from Belgium, who was also a previous participant of ASEFInnoLab2. So he will be sharing a lot of interesting insights with you on measuring outcomes and impact of different AI initiatives. Then we will have a short house break and then venture into the breakout room discussions for the second half of the session. But before I give the floor to Paula and Claudio, let me just introduce you, Raphael, quickly. So Raphael is trained as an engineer with an advanced degree in artificial intelligence from the Catholic University of Leuven. And he has been working in higher education in artificial intelligence for many years. He was the program director of the postgraduate program of applied artificial intelligence in Brussels, and it's inaugural year. And he was a researcher in responsible automation using expert systems in robotic environments. He's the president of the Leuven AI Forum and an engineer lecturer at Catholic University Leuven. Currently, he's the coordinator of the Flemish Ai Academy, as well as his Director General of the European Responsible Artificial Intelligence Office. In his spare time, he lectures negotiation techniques in his alma mater. So this is Raphael, he's already with us. And after the recap, we will take the floor and present his input. And I stop here now and it's over to Paula and Claudio.
Thank you, Rika. Good morning to everybody. We are very happy here today in Latvia. We are full of snow. So real winter came back to town and it's a little bit cold as well. So we reached -15 today in the far north of Latvia. So you know, if you want to come and visit us, so that's what you are gonna get. But it's beautiful to see the forest, you know, already with the white Christmas scene. So what we are gonna do today, and after the keynote speech of Raphael, so we are gonna do you are gonna work actually. So we are gonna have 1 hour of work together to complete the whole presentation of your project. And to do that, so we are going to review the 6 slides that your presentation includes and should include. That are those slides that we have been going through the different weeks, and you will be split in small groups of 3. Then you can work helping each other. We will go roaming around the different rooms, helping you out on that. And we're also going to present you a final slide that is going to be a sort of wrap-up slide that you will be able to use next week. So today is a day to work together, to complete the action plan, to complete your project, because next week you are going to present. Okay. But now, now, Rika, I'm gonna give the Zoom to Raphael for the keynote speech. Raphael, the Zoom is yours.
Thank you. All right, let me just get this in place. I hope all of you can hear me. If you can't, then of course just say something. Normally you should be able to see my screen. So good morning. I was asked to talk about my expertise in measuring outcomes and impact of teaching and research activities, specifically then in artificial intelligence, specifically in what universities can do in this. So maybe indeed, I was introduced very, very kindly. Thank you for that. The two biggest things that I'm working with right now are EURAI, the European Responsible AI Office, and then there's the Flemish Ai Academy, VAIA. There are some other things as well, indeed, but those really are the majority of what I spend my time on. But this talk is not about me. This talk is about measuring outcomes. It's about measuring outcomes of certain activities, and those activities will have participants. Now, the first thing I'd like to tell you is that it's important to keep in mind that participants have goals. This is obvious, but it's not obvious that there is a difference between professionals and academics that we always remember. What is this? Well, professionals like to know about something, that they don't mind knowing about something, but being able to do something with it is a lot more important to them. And that's not obvious to an academic. Now, in my entire talk, I will be focusing on activities in lifelong learning, focusing on learning for professionals, focusing on technology transfer research activities, research valorization activities. So of course, if you're doing fundamental research or research with low TRL levels, or if you are doing more fundamental teaching, bachelor, master level teaching, or teaching for research professionals, this will not apply in the same manner for you, or at the very least, the balance is different, obviously. But if we're talking about professionals, what is the knowledge? What are the skills that they need? And this is not always very obvious when we don't think about it as an academic. They need the capability to assess whether AI will help them. They need the capability to develop an overall management level implementation plan. So should we do this in-house? Should we buy this somewhere else, etc.? There is then the need of the capability to talk to external developers. And therefore they need to know things like, for example, let's just say you want to have a chatbot and you talk to an external developer, you need to be aware that that chatbot will require a lot of maintenance. If you're not aware, then you might not have the capability to make a good overall management level plan, to make a good agreement with a developer, or to manage it once it's implemented. And then, of course, you need the capability to assess the impact of what you're planning. Because maybe, let's say you're a local community, your local municipality, small city, and you say, we really want to offer better communication services to our inhabitants. But then if you would focus on, again, let's take the example of chatbots, you might only be giving that to the literate people, and the illiterate people might in the end have worse access to their rights, etc. So if you're not trained in those things, you might not be able to bring up the necessary capabilities to implement this in a good manner. Now notice that this is not knowing how AI works. This is not knowing what the difference between AI and machine learning is. And obviously you need to know this a little bit, but there is a fundamental difference between activities for academics and activities for professionals that we need to bear in mind. Now, talking about goals, goals are not as simple as they seem at the very beginning, because there's the goals that people are optimizing for. If we take the example of the chatbot, then it's optimizing for service for literate people with digital maturity. But they will tell you that they're optimizing for all inhabitants. So there's a difference between goals that people are optimizing for and people that they tell you that they're optimizing for, which they might not consider themselves. And then there's, of course, some other goals that they're not thinking about, that they should be thinking about. For example, with EURAI, we're offering help to a certain municipality who's using social scoring in order to predict criminality. Now, this is a very intriguing thing because it's currently legal, but because of the AI Act, the quintessential proposal of AI legislation in the European Union, it might become illegal in the future. So they're investing in something that might become illegal. They're not optimizing for that goal currently. Now, goals is one thing, but of course, people need capability to reach their goals. And once you know the goals that they should be optimizing for, there are a lot of questions that they should be able to answer. And then we get back to what I discussed earlier. Will AI help here? And sometimes the answer is not AI. Will it be feasible? Do I have the digital maturity? And then, of course, there are some other very, very important questions. Now, in the end, if you go through all of those questions and it's always yes, the answer will be then, okay, there's a new question. How should we do this? Now, how should we do this? There, I'd like to give some advice from some of my experience. Use the ecosystem, use the network. Because as a university, you're not sitting in a vacuum. Link organizations that fit the other side of the coin. If you, for example, are a technical research institution, and there are clients that have questions on, for example, feedback loops, moral feedback loops in their systems, business problems, link with experts in those problems. If you're maybe a more fundamental research organization and they ask you to not just give the architecture of the system, but to also implement the system, link with technical implementers. EURAI, for example, does this. EURAI does not do technical implementation, yet they do offer it because they broker it, because they work with technical partners. So help your clients to set up cooperation with expertise outside of your organization, but in your network. Now, in negotiation techniques, in the theory, we call this dovetailing. There's a very classic example of two kids wanting to divide 10 oranges. One wants to make a cake out of the peel, and then the other one wants to eat them. Now, if you're going to divide oranges 5-5, both of you are losing 5 oranges. So divide oranges 10-10. And that's what you're doing here with dividing, without dividing your clients with other partners in your network. Now, that intermezzo being what it is, there's a second part that I'd like to talk about, and that is when not to use AI and when not to advise people to use AI. Because teaching about AI, especially if you're an engineer as myself, very quickly becomes advertising for AI. AI is so grand and you could really use this, you should really use this. Now, if you teach about AI, there will be more uptake of AI. Yet that's not the same as saying that there should be more uptake. And that helps you if you're a more academic institution. Now, why does that strengthen the position of an AI academy? You're not a salesman here. You're just sharing some knowledge and you're not pushing for the innovation, you're causing it. What do I mean by that? Well, you're not saying you should use these systems, sir. You're saying this is what it can do. And the result of that is that there is, of course, more neutrality to your message and there's more trust. You're not a commercial institution or you're not a university who's set on wanting to do, valorize their R&D. No, you're just a neutral partner giving some wisdom or some knowledge at least. And there's less pressure. In my own experience, I was talking to local police schools and they said, we're not interested in learning about AI because we already, I see that a lot of you have frozen, but now you have unfrozen. So I'll re-say my sentence. I'm sorry, probably my internet was interrupted for a bit. So I saw with a lot of police schools that they said, we don't want to learn about AI because we already have enough people telling us that we should use AI. And we're not comfortable doing this because we don't know about all the implications and whether it's feasible. So people are looking sometimes for, can we do this? And do we have arguments not to do this? So that, and also the fact that if you explain it neutrally, there will be less unwise automations in AI, and maybe you can offer them something else that is better than, for example, machine learning. Now that brings us to, when should you then not advise people to use AI? Well, one thing is low digital maturity. And especially if you're a technically skilled person, it's very, very difficult to realize how low digital maturity sometimes is. I talked to the sector organization of municipalities in Flanders, and they said, yes, we want to have lifelong learning initiatives in AI. I asked them, what is the content that you'd like to have education on? And they said, we'd like to have courses on pivot tables. Pivot tables are not really what you can consider AI. It's a well, if I can say it boldly here, it's an Excel function. So people don't know what AI is. People don't know whether they need it or not. And then there's the other problem that if there's low digital maturity, there will be very low quality data. Maybe your municipality has 20 spreadsheets on you, but they will not be made in the same format. So there's very low quality data. And then there's, of course, problems that it might not be aligned with the values that they should be looking at. I will get back to that one. Might not be legal or be legal in the future, moral, or effective to actually reaching the goals you want to reach. You might have feedback loops. Now, a talk of 15 minutes is not long enough to explain what I mean by this, but I very, very briefly want to give you a summary here. If you want to read more about it, I think Superintelligence from Nick Bostrom, he's a professor from Oxford in philosophy, is the best book ever to describe this problem in a very abstract philosophical manner. If you're technically minded, you might prefer the book from Stuart Russell. He's a computer science expert, and he basically says the same thing, but he says it in a way that most engineers appreciate more. I prefer the Superintelligence book because I'm kind of a weird engineer. The long-term story is the superintelligence value alignment problem. I can't get into that right now, but the takeaway is that it's actually the same as the short-term story. Because what is happening in the short-term story? For example, there are feedback loops. The American credit scoring system that will say whether people should have a high or low interest rate when they take a loan from a bank goes something like this. You look like someone who will not pay back his or her loan. So I will give you a loan with a high interest rate. It's very difficult to pay back, of course. I was right, you did not pay it back. The system works. Obviously, the system doesn't work. That's a problem of a feedback loop and of misalignment. And then there's the other example, of what I was talking about, the EURAI client making a criminality index. Coupled with predictive policing will give you feedback loops. I will predict that you will not commit a crime, hence I will not look whether you committed crime. I have not seen that you've committed a crime, so I was right, you did not commit a crime. That's a feedback loop. You should get that out of there. You should correct for it. Of course, there's nudging. Cambridge Analytica is probably the most famous example of nudging. Nudging is using certain media channels to adapt people's filter bubbles in order to change their opinions over the long term. And nudging can be done involuntarily, or in the case of Cambridge Analytica, maybe more with reasons behind it. And this is, of course, not an exhaustive list at all. A very important one that you might also know about is the HR recruiting problems, the bias in those problems. I'm a hospital and I'm asking an expert system to tell me who I should hire. And I say, just look at who I hired in the past. And the system says, well, in the past, you only hired male doctors. So I tell you that the answer to your question is you should only hire male doctors. And of course, that's not the question you meant to ask, but this is the same, the similarity between the current issue and the long-term issue. It's very difficult to state what we mean and to make a system optimized for what we mean. Now, that brings us to the pitfalls. In education, mainly here looked at through a lens of education for professionals, and then research mainly looked at valorization. What should you not do? You should not focus on knowledge. Of course, there's a minimum here. Don't get me wrong. People should know what AI is. But you should rather focus on the capabilities. You should not focus on the technical aspects, but again, there's of course a minimum here. And of course, if you're talking to engineers who are going to implement this, then rather focus on the technical aspects, absolutely. But there's a way bigger market for focusing on the organizational and societal aspects. And the people, the decision level people that you're going to talk to do not care about the technical aspects. They care about those other aspects. So know who you're talking to when you're measuring outcomes. And then don't advertise for uptake. You'll be in a way stronger position and be causing a lot more uptake, very interestingly, if you just assess usefulness and help people to have the capability to assess usefulness. But this talk is about measuring outcomes. So when should you measure outcomes? Well, there's three very obvious moments. There is before that you have your session. Well, you can then say, are the sector organizations enthusiastic for you wanting to organize this? Are there a lot of people who are enrolling in this session or who are reaching out to you to have this technology transfer between your research department and their company? That's during. And there, I'd like to give a very practical piece of advice. Do a Q&A. At the end of the session, you ask, was this useful? You ask, how will you implement your new capabilities? And you can ask, what content would you like for the next one? And then finally, there's obviously after. 6 months, a year later, you ask, how many of you actually implemented their new capabilities? And finally, was that because of me? Thank you.
Thank you, Raphael. And maybe you can stop share, then we can have a conversation. And thank you so much also for respecting the time limits. Sometimes that's difficult between keynote speakers. I see. So I'm going to open now the floor. We have 15 minutes for a conversation with Raphael. And maybe someone would like to do a question, just raise your hand or post it into the chat, or any comment about what Raphael said or whatever things. But Raphael, you when before you started the keynote, we have a short conversation, and you talked to me about the Flemish AI Academy. Could you tell me a little bit more about the work that you do there? How is the interaction between university, governments, and companies on developing the AI ecosystem in Belgium? Thank you.
Well, I'm fond of saying I'm really proud of the Flemish government here. They invested a lot of money in research, applied research, and then what we are doing. So that's lifelong learning. It's specifically doing educational activities for people that are professionals. So this could be doctors, this could be lawyers, this could be people working in government. It's an organization between all universities in Flanders, and all of them are represented, and the team is consistent of a small 10 people. Each of them have a sector that they connect to. So they connect, for example, I have the sector myself of education for government. So I talk to all levels of government representatives, and I try to organize sessions specifically for them, and I try to tailor them for their interests. We do many things. We do sessions for doctors, I already said. One of the sessions that I did, for example, is I organized a session with the municipality organization of Flanders on robotic process automation, so software bots that help you automate certain tasks in administration. And we had all of the financial directors there, of the 150 financial directors of the cities of Flanders there, who were very interested in knowing how can we actually automate all of the invoices coming into a city and sending them to the correct departments. Yeah, but then over different sectors.
You do training and consulting at the same time, right? So it's a little bit of a balance, right?
There is no consulting. We don't have a mandate to do consulting, and because we're government funded, we don't have a mandate to intervene with the markets. The consulting is more in EURAI, actually. So the European Responsible AI Office has a mandate to help organizations one-on-one. There, what we do is, for example, this municipality has a wonderful idea of fighting organized crime, but they do it by using social scoring, predicting people's criminal behavior, coupling that to predictive policing, and they are aware that they're doing that in a very racially diverse, geographically diverse region. It's not a homogeneous region in terms of race, and they want to geographically do predictive policing. Now, other than the fact that they will not be reaching their goals, because they are self-fulfilling prophecies here, There's of course also the problem that this might be illegal and that this of course might also be unwise or immoral. So we are helping them with that. That is really a one-on-one thing where obviously we're not sharing all the details. What the Flemish AI Academy is doing is really creating publicly available open knowledge for everyone.
Thank you. Puteris, do you raise your hand?
Yes, I did. Hi, Raphael. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. I just have a question. So based on the slides, what we need to do is that we need to see how many people believe in our idea. So I would like to seek for clarification with regards to our idea. When we try to advocate and seek support, there's so many sometimes resistant and not many people believe in the capability of our project. So how do we overcome that?
Thank you. It's an interesting question. I believe the answer is in part in, again, dovetailing interests. You should find partners that make you credible. For example, if I might say so, the session on robotic process automation was a really successful session. People were very happy about it. We had a lot of people because the Flemish AI Academy as a new initiative did not reach out to people. There was already an established partner who had absolutely no knowledge, but who organizes a lot of things for their I'll call them clients, the municipalities. And they got to put their name on it together with us, and we gave the expertise that they could not have. So in that manner, you also are more correct in saying that you can do this because you're not trying something in which you don't have expertise yourself.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question. So meanwhile, people come up with more questions and comments. Also, I have one, I mean, more from a European level, but I guess, you know, Europe has been leading all the GDPR and data protection and privacy. And one of the key issues for AI to succeed is that we need intelligent machines, right? And intelligent machines means that you need a lot of data and good data that actually can make the machines smarter. Probably this is a little bit sensitive, so feel free to answer in a more political way if you want, but how do you feel about that? I mean, given the GDPR regulations that we have, how companies really and university can look forward to developing smart AI solutions, and how, if regulations stays as they are, so how do you feel we can operate in that framework? Because I guess there are a lot of other ecosystem where they are just importing our own regulations as well in some way. So what's your take on that, Rafa?
Yes. It's indeed a very complicated issue. Now, it is a very good thing that there is the GDPR. It's a very good thing that there are research exceptions for it. And of course, for all people that are in research here, if you're working with data, look at the research exceptions because those give you a bit more possibilities. But of course, there is the problem that a lot of things that you want to do are opt-in, not opt-out, and hence you will have tainted data sets because only a certain number of people will opt in. And then, of course, that will be correlated with whether those things are socially accepted, etc. So I think it's a very good thing that we have the GDPR. Maybe, but I'm not sure how, a new initiative, which we're also working on in Flanders might be helping here, and that is to make data warehouses. So I'm assuming, but I'm not aware of this, that other countries are already starting to work on this. So the idea there is that you don't have Facebook or another service provider hosts your data. The idea is that the government will host your data and that you say which APIs can have access to your data, but that they cannot make a copy of it. That only you with your government host your data and have full control at which APIs can actually access. I hope that can already give more trust that people can opt in more to help with research. And I think the research exception should be broader That being said, well, I think you all know that the practical things that happen in universities sometimes are not GDPR confirmed. Like they're not in order with that. And I do think that it's very, very important that when universities first take up their responsibility in making sure that they have responsible data policies, but then also that once we have that professionality in our universities, that then Europe and other regions in Eurasia will actually make the legislation so that within trusted organizations with responsible policies, they can go beyond certain scopes.
Thank you. We have a couple of we have many questions in the chat, and Raphael, probably you can also open with me the chat, and then we can go. You can also pick a little bit. The first one is very interesting about the big challenges you face when you have discussion with governmental representatives. That's part of my personal work. So, but I will give you the floor to you. I find sometimes, number one, they don't understand AI and they are behind the loop. The number two is that now we are pushing here to have a country CIO that will be in the Prime Minister office to think across government, because one of the things is that they are trying, each ministry, each department, each agency is trying to get its own solution. We are telling them, look, it's not about that. So you need an overall government policy on that. Okay, but what's your answer to that, Raphael? It's very interesting.
Wait, but then because I need to scroll up a bit. What is the exact question?
The question is, what are the big challenges you face when you have discussions with governmental representatives?
Oh, yes. Well, the same one as you said. We need a course on AI. We need a course on pivot tables. That is a big problem. That even the people that are having the debate with you on how to cooperate don't have the technical expertise. So specifically for that, I'd like to say that everything I said in my talk does not apply to people that need to know these technical things. So people that are going to help organize certain levels of educational research need to know what they're talking about. And that is indeed a very big problem. And then the second thing is, but this is more specifically to machine learning, but machine learning these days is the biggest part of AI, is that indeed there is no data. And that's an issue. And I think a third thing that you didn't say is that there is, well, maybe you did say it, there is a lot of resistance, especially in government, because there are a lot of employees that have done their job for a long time, and usually the culture is very strict. Usually the political goals are very short term. They will not go over the next election. So it's very difficult for them to invest in long-term efficiency. So either they will not be interested, or they will rush something without thinking whether it will actually help. And then they will announce that they have this new, for example, I hate and love the example, we have this criminality system. Another example is we want to, in all of the province, share all of the camera images through all the municipalities without restrictions. It's a lovely initiative, but it's either so rushed like that, or we don't like the change, and then it doesn't happen. And sometimes that's an additional problem. You have one with the political level and then the other one with the administrative level, and you get in quickly, but then you get completely stuck when you get to implementing it.
We have many questions. We have only a few minutes. I'm trying to consolidate questions, and there was a question about, okay, the previous one was how you talk to government, how you face the government official challenge. And I'm going to connect, there are a couple of questions from Anna and Hedren that I think are somehow, similar to the one about talking to government officials. Because one is from Anna, did you succeed to convince the professors at the University of Leuven that AI technology is useful in their work. I mean, Faculty of Natural Sciences. I think convincing professors is very similar to convincing government officials sometimes. And the one from Hedren that I think is very connected to that as well is how do we measure the impact of AI research and innovation? What are the metrics that you use to measure valorization efforts? Is you know, and you started the talk on that, you know, outcomes related to the goals. So how do you convince professors, and what are the metrics you use probably to convince them as well, right? So I know this is a €1 million question for an early morning in Brussels, but anyway, so just
it's actually rather unrelated. So the good thing about people not knowing about AI is that they're very hyped about it and that they think it will solve everything and you don't even need data to do proper machine learning. Okay, I'm stating this overly bluntly, but you get the gist of what I mean, I hope. So it's actually not hard to convince non-engineering or non-statistics professors to invest in, for example, having a course in AI or adopting AI in their research. At least in Leuven, it has been really easy to convince them because they think, well, AI can solve everything. So I'm very interested in talking about that and looking at whether it will work. Then there is the question on how you actually measure what you did was actually useful. And there, I really believe that the answer is implementation. Did people in the end change something because of you? So, of course, it's different with a course in bachelor's and master's and PhD students, absolutely. But if you're giving classes to professionals, or if you're an R&D department in university giving a license of certain IP, and there was no technical implementation in the end, which, mind you, has nothing to do actually with technical skills in the beginning of the process. There it's more the organizational skills and the assessment skills, but of course the technical skills come about somewhere in the process. But if there is no technical implementation in the end, then there is no success. It's that implementation that will see that you have succeeded.
Thank you. And friends, this is why we are with ASEF's team so much insisting on very specific action plans, because in all innovation you need to getting wins and wins and wins, and this is why sometimes it looks that we are trying to be uninspiring to you, but really the reality, we want you to go getting tactical wins that eventually will start convincing people. We will have two more questions. One is more practical, and then the other one will be more about ethics. There are two questions about ethics, and then I will leave the one about ethics by the end. But the more tactical one, more practical one is from Bobby, more on the pedagogical side. So probably if you have any example or idea, or how can we use AI for supporting a student learning process and knowledge gain? Bobby, I hope I'm interpreting the question properly. So, but how we can enhance learning of our students?
Yes, true.
Yeah, fantastic. Raphael?
The answer actually, my apologies, stands, the long answer is in this book. It's Artificial Intelligence in Education. It's written by Wayne Holmes and others. Good book. Very low in technicality, so very entry level for if your expertise is not an engineer. I want to be a bit skeptical here, unfortunately. Using AI is a very good thing, like if you use systems to track students' progress and then to give them very specific advice. If you use AI, for example, automated grading systems, or very, very intriguing and will help you to do a lot more for your students. But then there is, again, it's the same as predictive policing. When it's predictive reaching a degree, you reach all kinds of bias problems and feedback loop problems. I know we don't have the time to get into them. So don't implement without thinking that through. But I do think there is a lot of potential for using expert systems, not machine learning systems, but expert systems in following up whether students are actually working on this. And there's a non-profit that is now maybe 10 years old. It's called Khan Academy. I think it's written Khan. And they have this wonderful thing where they make knowledge snips. They started actually in Paint, just drawing things. And then it's modular. So there's a knowledge snippet, and then there's some exercises. And you can see whether students scored good on those exercises because there's automated grading, and then that gives you a badge to go to the next level. Yes, indeed, and Khan Academy. So that might be a very, very great example of using expert systems.
We are having a government program here in Latvia about Khan Academy, so we are going to be translating their materials. So very interesting. Thank you for mentioning that. And I will finish with two questions. We'll try to combine them in one, but very fascinating question from Arwin and Robert. These are typical questions for a nice fireside chat, you know, over whiskey in the evening or something, because it's about, can we make machines, AI solutions to behave, I mean, to do what is good? I mean, so could they learn to have good ethical behavior in a way? And I think both questions go into that. One saying, could we create those solutions? The other is, could we make governments be sure that whatever they do, and you were touching upon policing, is one of the most controversial applications of AI. So how, you know, we can guarantee that those solutions really are ethical. And Raphael, sorry to leave you with this question.
No, I love it. This is my work. But indeed, how to keep it short, right? First of all, the book Superintelligence, if you're interested in this kind of question, read the book on superintelligence. And I'd like to add that Nick Bostrom is often discredited because he's only a professor in philosophy at Oxford. What would he know about AI, right? So he leads the GovAI Institute, but what would he know about AI? He's not a technical person. And people don't know that Stuart Russell, who has written the canonical handbook on AI with Peter Norvig, a computer science expert, actually is of the same opinion in that other book I mentioned, Human Compatible. But people don't know about that book, so people just dispose of the idea of value alignment with superintelligence. They say, and if value alignment with superintelligence is not a problem, then why would it be a problem with current day AI? And of course it is a problem. So the problem there is very much that we should solve the value alignment problem. Now, on whether we can make machines that will follow rules, recently I'm more and more getting into the intersection with the legal field. And especially as an engineer, I'm surprised that, if I might summarize it, so the way that law enforcement works, especially the judiciary, is you ask a judge to interpret certain conflicting rules according to the mindset of the politicians that have implemented them. And you have to balance certain rights. So like GDPR, for example, there's no absolute privacy rights, at least not in Europe. There's actually very little absolute rights. It's all balancing. There's privacy versus security versus other things. So it's actually impossible to make a completely sure reasoning engine that will follow legal rules, because even we cannot interpret them, because judges will actually have conflicting rulings. There's actually, in patent law, there's this thing like, if you have a patent in the UK and in Germany, then make sure that the ruling is either in Germany or in the UK if you want to have the broader, the narrow interpretations of the claims. And then the other judge will try to follow the previous judge a little bit. So there's actually this thing that you cannot do this. And this, again, is actually the value alignment problem. It is impossible to state all of our values and to state them in a manner that the system will do what we wanted to ask instead of what we asked. So I do not have the answer to the question of how we can prevent this, except that A path towards preventing it starts with understanding that value alignment is a very real problem. And regardless of whether you believe that superintelligence will ever come about, currently value alignment is an issue that we should accept, and that all, especially engineering students, because I have to talk against my own folk here, have to appreciate a lot more.
Thank you. And I think this is a fantastic area of research, and all the ethics of AI, and it has been a spot into the social dilemma documentary, but also in all the discussions around social media, driverless cars. So I know University of Stanford, I think, has a great experiment on how to learn ethical values and how to ethical decision making for machine. But I think we are at the very, very beginning of this. Raphael, this was wonderful conversation. Raphael, contact details and presentations stay, and also the video in our e-learning platform. I'm very famous for that I am always late for the breaks. Sometimes we always skip the breaks altogether with my students. This time around, we are also late for the health break. Reka, what do we do? So because we were going to be finishing the break in 3 minutes from now. So what do we do?
Maybe I can say one more thing, because if people are really interested in talking about these things, you're very, very welcome in reaching out and having more debates on this, or cooperation.
Fantastic. Reka, for me it's 10:53. I think we can give a break of 7 minutes if you don't mind. Yeah, so we have all a health break of 7 minutes, and we are gonna meet in 7 minutes. Okay. Thank you, Raphael, again. Fantastic.
And our break is over. If you are back with us, feel free to turn on your webcams. I'm preparing for the breakout sessions already. Our DJ was not in a romantic mood, but we were playing songs from a country which is celebrating its national today. And we also have a participant with us who's from this country. So if you know which country was it, feel free to put it in the chat. And the participant from the given country, don't reveal it yet. Let's see whether anyone can guess. Okay, Claudia, over to you.
Oh, I know, Thailand. No, it's not Thailand. But someone put it in the chat, or two. We have two, yeah, Rick. So we have two. Sophia, are you celebrating something in Thailand? Tell us more. Okay, so I need a clue. You know, Rika was writing me, but I was guessing. I put it in Google, but I didn't find anything. Okay, we will find out by the end of the session. Paula, maybe we can go to the presentation. Where are you, Paula?
Good. I am here. And
hello.
Here we go.
Okay. We last week, what we did was to build this beautiful graph on the stakeholders, and I hope you managed to get around the drawings and to put which are the main stakeholders, and you also have been rating your team. And you know, it's very connected with what Raphael was saying in our discussion during the keynote, that is crucial you start getting tactical wins, you know, and win support from the different stakeholders, and that you start to convince your own officials, your own professor, your own researcher, your own companies, and you need to have some metrics for that. So what we are going to do today, next slide, please, Paula. What we are going to do today is trying to go through all your individual slides. So we will do it. We will send you to very small breakout rooms that you can help each other. We will go visiting your rooms as well, so that you can today, at least in principle, have no doubts by the end of the session of what each slide includes. Again, this is, you know, we take innovation as bringing ideas to impact. So it's getting work done, that actually accomplish goals. And sometimes, you know, when we are talking about big technologies, we are all dreaming to have big system, individualizing education. We all dream about creating startups together with companies, but we need to start little by little, and that really there is progress. And that's why for this program, we had this objective that each one of you have one action plan that is doable, that is actionable, that is measurable, that has a specific timing and is realistic for the short run. And now I will ask Paula to walk you through again the different slides, just to make a refresh of what the presentation should include. Paula?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Claudio. So you've seen all of this. There will be just one new slide. But yeah, we'll just go through and remind what were the slides and what should be there. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So this is the first slide, and probably all of you already have it. When we were working for the first time on this slide, we had only this table. So afterwards, we asked you to add the challenge on top. So maybe some of you missed that. So this is a good opportunity to also finalize the slide in that matter, that you add the challenge on top. And then there is explanation in each of the sections: who, what, where, when, and why. So this probably is quite ready by now. You might have changed it several times, but hopefully by now it's pretty clear. Claudia, feel free to add something if there is anything. Then the second slide is this slide where you evaluate the potential solutions based on the success criteria. So remember, you were coming up with the success criteria. These are the ones here on top. And then you were evaluating which solution could be the best one based on your knowledge. I remember we had a discussion in one of the breakout rooms. What's the best way to evaluate? At this point, it's your knowledge, it's your educated opinion about these criteria that you have chosen. So slide number 3, this one we worked on comparatively recently. So here, strategy A and B for achieving 2 of your objectives plus activities. So as we discussed, it's very important to be specific about what you want to achieve. So the activities are very important here as well. Anything you would like to add, Claudio?
Well, as you all see, it's all well connected with what Raphael was saying today in the keynote. So what is the value alignment? Value alignment of the solution, value alignment with the challenge, value alignment of the objectives with the solution you want to implement, value alignment of the strategy with the objectives you want. So it's very tactical, as you can see, but you know, you have a lot of very great ideas that have failed on implementation, and then the idea didn't work out. So we are focusing on the implementation process.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the fourth slide, the one that we just did last week. So this is probably something I finished recently, and what we added here that was not in your kind of homework slide, that on top of the slide, it would be great if you can add your team rate, the one that you used in the beginning of last week's group session, that yeah, just in the level of 5, from 1 to 5, where do you evaluate your team? So that's something that you can just add on top.
Yeah, and here last week there was a question by one of you about, okay, what is the real situation? What is the ideal situation? Here you can incorporate another slide. This one is what is real today in terms of our relationships with the stakeholders and the level and the capacity of our team to implement the solution. But then you can also set as a next slide with what would be the ideal scenario for your team and for your network. Oh.
Yep, and here then is the slide that we suggest you to use for the presentation next week, and probably it's easier to see it here. On the top, we want you to add the name and the institution you represent, then the webpage, then the team. We just chose to wrote that we were a team of 5 people. If you want to indicate specific people or their roles, that might be a good idea as well. Probably adding roles of people is something that could be helpful, just to see what type of people you have in the team. Then challenge. Sorry. Well, okay, that's good. Challenge, then the solution, and we wanted you to add your objective number 1 and number 2. So what you want to achieve, it comes from the slide with the activity plan. So those would be the objectives. And then main activities and main stakeholders. So this slide will help you to summarize everything. So we want you to have these 4 slides that I just showed, and also this one as a summary slide, because we will not have a lot of time. So this one will be a helpful tool to explain what you have done over these 6 weeks quickly. Claudio?
Yeah, so we, our colleagues from the ASEF team, they just put the presentation, the slides. You can download the whole desk together. Now for the breakout rooms, you are experts as well on how to work in teams. Well, you have different options. One option is that each one show to the other ones your current slides to get some feedback. You can go walking through each one of the slides and then get questions and ask. Then each one of you can help each other. We are going to send you now to the breakout rooms. We will pick you up in 20 minutes for just sharing some comments and questions, so that can be useful for everybody. Okay, and then we will send you back to continue on the work. Depends how much you have progressed up to now, so it's how far you can get today, but maybe some of you might even finish the whole presentation today. Okay, by the end of the session, we are gonna give you some instruction about how things will proceed next week with the final presentations. Okay, of course, feel free with Paula, you know. So we put this slide in this way. It has this format, but you can make it nicer if you feel, you know, you can put some pictures. So this is up to you, but just keep the structure because it will be useful for sharing your ideas, right? What is important is that this last slide is the one that will help you to do an elevator pitch. So it's a pitch about your idea and your action plan. Okay, now. Rika, Miguel,
maybe there are some questions. Maybe there are some questions before we open the breakout rooms.
Yeah, someone is saying that the presentation is not yet there, available. Rika, Miguel, maybe you can comment.
Hi, yeah, so the Zoom, I'm on the platform, cannot see the presentation there. You can click the link in the chat of this Zoom call, and you can access the PowerPoint there.
Okay, so you can go to a chat first, and then good. Does anyone, before we send you to the breakout rooms, anyone would like to make any question at this point?
Claudio, good day. So because of the inputs that Raphael has mentioned for this lecture, so there's really a hierarchy on how we will going to evaluate is it really need for AI, the one he mentioned, because we need to run through. So do we need to run through all those questions, and then finally we will come, I think we're gonna have some pivot a bit, because the thing that I have in mind is I think we have a second thought on pursuing based on the inputs that Raphael mentioned today. So yeah, Yeah.
Well, actually, I mean, this is a 6-week iteration process where every iteration is feeding back your challenge and your idea and your solution and your objective and your strategy. Today is not the last day. So the last day is next Thursday. It's not that today you need to finish it. So it's not about that. Well, the objective today, and thank you for the question. So the objective today is that you understand the logic of the presentation. But if you, because of the conversation we had today with Raphael, that is giving you another perspective you think is useful for your action plan, more than welcome, because as you know, as more convinced you are on your idea when you finish on 9 December, as happy as we will be happier we will be. So that's my quick answer. I hope I answered your question. I think that was a question.
Yeah, thank you, Claudio.
Welcome. Do we have any other question before we go to the breakout rooms?
On my end, I'm Miguel here, yeah. Just so everyone knows, you can access the PowerPoint for the breakout session exercise on the session 5 of the e-learning platform. And we also sent the link, which you can download from Google, our Google Drive. So I hope everyone can access this.
Thank you, Miguel. Thank you so much. Do we have any other question? No? Rika, Miguel, let's send our friends to their breakout rooms and we will be visiting you. Okay, guys, so we just brought you back by force to just check out whether you have any question or comment or whatever at this point before you can continue with your discussions. I have seen very interesting ideas in the groups I was in the first 5 group, I think. They were very, very nice action plans. So, but anyone would like to comment, questions, whatever? Everything is clear.
Well, no, we were discussing in our group, we were discussing about the stakeholders because I forgot actually to ask that last time. There was this slide with a lot of stakeholders, everything green and red. And one of the stakeholder was wealth. So I was wondering what can be put as a stakeholder on the slide. It was wealth. Wealth is not an organization. It's not a person. There was also Africa in red. Investments. What is this? What was this? Because those are not organizations, persons. I didn't know how to interpret this slide.
I'm sorry. Yeah, that slide is initial slide we put just to see, but it's a stakeholder mapping of a South African bank. And but then you have another more simple on the GDX. So, but I'm sorry, that first one is a little bit more confusing and also much bigger because it's a bank and it's a real South African bank. And we have this stakeholder mapping.
So I was wondering what can be a stakeholder. If wealth can be a stakeholder, can be a stakeholder something that has positive or negative impact, and it's not a person or organization. That was the question.
No, I think no. I mean, it should be an institution. It should be. I mean, it should be a physical person. It should be a legal person, but there could not be an abstract. Now, there could be. It could be a movement.
Okay.
For example, the Fridays. How is called the Fridays movement of Greta for environment. This is a movement. I mean, if you are some sort of solution that is looking at Green Deal or something, probably you might not miss that part because it can be a stakeholder you want to play with, right? So to work with or something, right? So it could be a movement that is around.
So, for example, the times when exams are at the faculty, those are also specific times that everyone must participate at.
Oh, you mean the schedule of the exams?
Yeah, or not. That is something like that I was wondering. And can influence participation in some projects.
Yeah.
We actually see that in some other projects and workshops that
you know how I
when
would
exams
put it?
are, everything goes down and then up and down, and it can be seen. So, but I don't know if that can be a stakeholders, because it's
Well, but no. I mean, you are touching something very important, that is planning. The planning department or the planning staff of the planning process, depending on the size of the institution, actually influences a lot in the life of an institution. I think you are right on that. I don't know what is your project, or I don't remember it.
yeah, it's a small AI ecosystem in the faculty to connect economic studies and information system studies in AI projects. With students, but I think a lot of parties on the students and their participation. So
yeah, but yeah, in that case, the planning department is important for you. I would not put I would not put the exam schedule of the exam calendar, but I would put the planning department, or the planning staff, or the planning process, if you want, you know, that actually can influence it. Yeah.
Okay, thanks.
I see someone posting, how many minutes should we pitch our work? We are gonna, Robert, we are gonna come to specifics on next week by the end of the session. So that's gonna be there. But it's gonna be very short, very short. Okay.
Claudio,
yes.
Just make a confirmation regarding the slide number 3. If we have 3 objectives, so should we put all of those objectives along with the strategies and the activities? Because
you mean in the final slide, right?
Yes, put them all in one slide. Because we have 3 objectives, and then each objective has probably 2 or 3 strategies, and the strategy has to have 6 activities. So we can imagine how small is the font should be put in one slide, all of them in one slide.
Yeah. So your question is that the format of the slide is very small to put everything, right?
Yes.
That's the question. Okay, this slide is intended to help you to pitch stakeholders on your idea, okay? And your main output of those pitchings is that they give you the possibility to meet again and go into the details. So, and so that's the objective of the pitching. You can put 3 objectives if you want instead of 2. But the idea of this is to grab the attention and to see, oh, this is something where we can see some tangible process moving forward, some tactical wins. Okay, let's meet and go into the details. This is the objective of one. Why is only one slide and it's so short? Because it's not the objective to show everything about the project, but to grab the attention, see it meaningful, and that you can go for a second discussion. My experience in the academic world, also in the government world, is that many times people go immediately into the details without a proper conversation and on the concept. And then at the end of the day, they don't get the buy-in because really you don't understand the meaning of the whole picture first. Okay. Did I answer your question, Arvin? Probably I'm not.
Or probably we just we just pick the highest value objective.
Yes, exactly. So here and you put some key main activities in the last part so that people might understand what could it mean in terms of resources, right? So this is the idea of the main activities. So it's okay, how much it costs. So what does it mean in terms of faculty emotion, what actually Sandra was touching upon? Okay, what does it mean in terms of faculty attention on financial resources? So you put some activities. So the idea is to give you, okay, the inspiration and a little bit the concept of what would this means in terms of implementation, at a glance. But it's very schematic and it's very brief. It's conceptual. Okay.
Okay, thanks, Claudio.
Welcome. I have a question there from Bobby. I have submitted session, but it shows late submission. Will it be a problem? No, it will not be a problem because the final, we are going to explain you a little bit more on the deadlines for the final submission and the write-ups, because there should be also a write-up at the end. Okay, do we have any other question, or we send you to, otherwise we send you again to the breakout rooms? Okay, so people are eager to continue working. Okay, we send you back to the breakout rooms, please.
Audio, you're muted.
Maybe you can put in the chat from 1 to 10, how do you feel ready for the presentation next week? So 1, I am at the beginning of the story. 10, I am almost done. I see an 8. Okay. Nobody's putting himself or herself at 10. Yeah? Some people are prudent. Very good. Some people think that they need to work a lot still. Fantastic. You know, there was a research in United States about correlation between a student performance and a student confidence level before exams, performance in exam, and so that and what is interesting there, the people that has absolutely confidence on their jobs, so they were the ones performing the least, the worst in the exams afterwards. But I see everyone is thinking that it still needs to work a lot, and I'm happy about that. Good. About next week, you will have the opportunity to present your action plans. We suggest you that you will that you use the last final slide only. Why? Because you have 3 minutes only to speak. Of course, you can use all the slides, but it's really too many. You will submit the whole deck, and that's something that Rika and Miguel are going to explain after. But for the final presentation, we suggest you only use one overall slide. So you will have 3 minutes. You will be split in 4 groups. We are going to tell you the groups on Thursday early morning. So you will be told by Miguel when do you have to submit your decks, your presentations, and then we will review them before Thursday. And on Thursday, you will be split, all of you, in 4 groups. And you will present your action plans in 3 minutes. And there will be a vote in your groups, and one of the presentation will be selected by each group to go to the final presentation round. So there will be a final session where all of us will be together, and then we will listen the 4 presentations that have been voted by the different groups. So we are really, the ideas I have heard are very, very good. So I think there will be very tough competition between the action plans, but it's not only about the competition. There is a possibility also to get feedback, because you will have 1 hour in your teams to pitch and also to get feedback. There will be experts, there will be your peers as well, so that they will be able to give you feedback on that. As it says there, the PowerPoint slides or the finance slides are welcome, but not required. Some people speak without slides in their elevator pitch. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, now I will hand the Zoom over to Rick and Miguel to explain.
Yeah, so this slide is about the next steps. So we hope we can issue a certificate of completion to all of you, but there are 3 prerequisites to this. We would like to ask everyone to submit your action plan, the 4, 5, 6 slides, the deck that you have been working on, that you've been building up gradually. And hopefully we'll just take a very little effort to finalize this deck by next week, Thursday. And so this would be one that we would like to ask you to give us. Then the second one is a short narrative of your action plan, which is basically a one-page document, maximum 1 page, explaining the action plan, this 5-6 slides. This we would like to publish afterwards in a small booklet. We also did this with the first group with EURAI participants. We will send you the link so they can take a look how that looked like. And then the third prerequisite of this certificate would be to complete the final feedback form. We would be really grateful if you would do this and let us know how can we further improve the program, what worked well, what didn't. We would be very happy to receive your feedback on this. This will be all explained in the next update email. And we also hope to sustain the community afterwards. We have an alumni network on LinkedIn where the participants of the first edition are already in, including Raphael. And we will invite you to join this where you can take further the conversations and join upcoming editions of this project in different capacities as speakers, mentors. Everything is open for discussion. We would be happy if you would remain engaged. I stop here, and if you have any questions related to the preparations for next year or to this certificate, then it's a good time to ask and take the floor. But otherwise, you can shoot us an email anytime.
You can stop share and then we can see for participants. It's a good time for questions before the final day. It will be a celebratory day for us. And certainly this is one of the great things about this type of programs, is we start building a community, and this is a global community, a very, very exciting one with a lot of people, with a lot of energy to do things. Any question before we close? We also have one final announcement regarding next week event, but before we do that announcement, so any question, any comment to us?
Do we have, Claudio, tomorrow a meeting, or not at all on Friday? Tomorrow,
yeah,
Friday?
Yes, mentoring sessions will be.
Yeah. Okay, thanks.
Yes, so feel free to join.
Okay. Thank you very much. And have a good day.
Mm-hmm. Well, before you go, so for next week, what we ask you is to have a little bit more of the global flavor. We cannot do it in person, so we are virtual. But if you can dress something that is typical of your country for the presentations, or your background in Zoom, with your flag, with whatever that is proper of your country, that is that's something you love in your country, and it's a custom. So I think we can have a beautiful, more global. So we will feel the global. The global scene that we are having here right now, and we can have a beautiful picture as well for our memories. Okay, Sophia, you wanted to do a question because I saw your microphone off. Yeah,
because you mentioned before finalists will need to pitch. I was wondering, is there like a prize?
Well, the cake of Reka's birthday and Paula's birthday, I'm not sure about that. So Reka, I think is what
we are happy to offer an Asia Europe Education Leader T-shirt to the 4 finalists. Yeah.
Put the finalists on the spotlight, certainly, and it's about networking, a lot about networking. Okay. Good.
Great. And then happy National Day to Lao. Lao Pidiar Vieng Davong.
Thank you.
Hope you had a good day off. Okay.
Fantastic. Happy day to everyone.
Bye, everyone. See you next week.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
See you next week.
Bye.